Now, here are some of my questions that I then mull over, should we see partners individually? I do. Okay? Do I work with people while they are in the midst of an affair? Yes. At some point, I may sometimes say, do you think you can even think about your marriage? You are in the midst of the intoxicating, passionate. I don't think anything's going to pale by comparison. At this point, I'm not sure you can even really think about this. But sometimes you meet people and they're trying to extricate themselves. And sometimes, actually, you have people who realized in the context of the affair that they want to stay. And sometimes you realize that they want to leave, so you want to find out where in the affair they are and what kind of an affair it is. Meaning that I have a series of meanings and motivations. For example, I have seen a lot of people in affairs after they have gone through a death. Friend who went too soon, a parent who died, or bad news at the doctor. But basically, when mortality hits, people say, is this it? I want more out of life. I have seen a lot of people have affairs after they come out of surgeries. Women with breast cancers and stuff like that. Who just want to feel that sense of, remember, my frame is aliveness on the infidelity. And I'm not talking about sex outside. I'm talking about something a little more on the substantial thing. So what do I do when I hear a secret that the other partner does not know? Nothing. I explore the secret with the people. I sit with it. The most important work in anything having to do with infidelity is our ability to not push for something and to be patient. It's as much when you're working and the affair is not revealed, and especially when the affair is revealed or discovered, is to really be able to sit and not to push people to divorce, to leave, to throw her out, to throw him out, and all of that stuff. It's not our agenda, and it's certainly not our society's agenda. And the society kicks in because your friends are there to tell you, what a bitch, what a jerk, what a this, kick him out, throw her out. That's how you experience your sense of empowerment. But no. And what else is out there, people? And when you're a 60-year-old woman, do you think you have an equal playing field out there? No. And meanwhile, you maybe love this person anyway, and maybe you even desire this person. Maybe you've had a great sex life, actually. I've got 4 couples around me unraveling, of my closest friends, I'm telling you. It's like, and one of them was with a whole, parallel life. But I can tell you, this was a wonderful couple. This was with a great sex life, with a man who loves his woman. He just has had another life. Same with pushing for revelation. I always, when a person asks a question, I will say, do you want to know the answer to your question, or do you want him or her to know that you have the question? Sometimes I want to ask because I want you to know that this is what I'm thinking about, but it doesn't mean that I'm ready to deal with the answer. So you slow it down. Do you want to know the answer to your question, or do you want your partner to know that you're having this question? I pay attention to where my identification resides. Sometimes I identify with the person who was unfaithful, and sometimes I identify with the person who was cheated upon. Depends on the nature of the affair. I'm working with a couple now where, it's one of these, movie stories, it's a good friend of the house, and the friend would come to the house, and then she would see what was going on, and then she would tell the wife, you don't have to wear a dress tonight, it's just a very informal party. And then she would go and put on the most beautiful dress while the wife would show up with the jeans. And then they would be sitting, the 4 of them, the 2 couples, while and I pay attention to myself, and in thinking now, because of where he is in relation to his wife now, and they really actually decided they wanted to be together, and because of what she did when it all came out, which was that instead of getting all upset, she actually began by apologizing on how they have 4 kids, 2 of which were her wanting. Talk about a loss of attention. They had 4 kids in the bed for a long time. And at some point, he wanted attention. And she basically began by saying, I know you didn't want the other children. And she took him completely off guard. You know, it would have been so predictable to be the wounded person. But no, she first went and looked at the marriage. And he got the wife he had been waiting for. The recognition he had been longing for. And this man was back faster than you could imagine. But I couldn't have produced this, you know. This is something that somehow she got it, you know. So I pay attention to my bias. When am I feeling that, you know, where do I go? And it fluctuates. I'm not always on one side or the other. I don't by definition condemn one, and I don't by definition pity the other, and all of that. Sometimes I have envy, sometimes I have disgust, sometimes I have judgment, sometimes I want to be there, sometimes I am scared of my own relationship, sometimes I wonder, you know, because infidelity really points at the tenuousness of relationship and the lack of predictability and control over your destiny. The story will not unfold the way you had imagined it sometimes. And it means mine wouldn't either. I may be 30 years with the same guy, but that doesn't mean that tomorrow morning I can't find out something. So you suddenly realize, you know, nobody's safe from this thing. And which actually is reality. It's just that we kind of lure ourselves to think that it's not. That's the loss of innocence. All right, I'll give you a few other of the questions. We don't have to, you know. So are women less likely to wander? Are we programmed for monogamy? Does infidelity challenge the double standard of patriarchy? When I go down the southern border, the minute I start from Mexico all the way to Argentina, it's very clear that female infidelity is a social revolution. It's not just an individual thing. It is about challenging the double standard and the male status quo. To the point where it is no longer that when she cheats, he is out, and when he cheats, she has to accommodate. It's that when she cheats, he wants to make sure that she stays. Because his honor is at stake and he doesn't want to lose face. And then if it's in Cuba, he has to prove that he's no less of a man because he didn't kick her out. Meaning the pressure is everywhere. You know, they all tell him, if you're a real man, you'd be throwing her out. But what if he actually cares for her? He's not weak because of it, you know? He's not less of a man because of it. So you get all the gender stuff, you know, about it. But in the reverse version in the Latin world and in the more egalitarian world. Okay, there's a whole virtual world and all of that. Yeah, another thing that is cross-culturally for me relevant is, can lying be a form of protection? You know, in America, it's not an accepted idea that lying actually is you know, everybody wants to reduce the whole thing to having your cake and eat it too. Or is that some version like that, right? Rather than, you know, things are slightly more complicated. So if the people come to me right in the aftermath, the main frame I try to use, in general, before, during, and after, but certainly to the couple, is a dual frame of it is betrayal, and it is painful and hurtful and traumatic for some, but not as a given necessarily. But it is also a story of growth and expansion and longing on the other side. And you have to be able to hold both. That sometimes what was amazing for me happens to also be extremely painful for you and hurtful to you. But I didn't do it to hurt you. Betrayal is always a part of the infidelity plot, but it's not the motivation. And Michelle Shankman's articles are fantastic on this subject. So I try to really hold both. And holding both is, in the beginning you have the immediate crisis of the aftermath, so then you do, you know, basically what you get is people who are overwhelmed, flooded, you know, the carpet has been pulled from under them, they can't trust the reality they were in, and they have a confluence of conflicting emotions coming one after the other. Leave me, don't leave me, get the fuck out of here, hold me, fuck you, fuck me. You know, it's just one under, and you normalize and you hold them and you tell them this is not a time to make a decision. You talk about brain stuff, you are hijacked, you're completely flooded. This is not a time to make a decision. And just calm down, normalize, and hold, and create structure and reassurance and hope. And one of the most helpful sentences is when I say to people, you know, at this time in the West, most of us are going to have 2 or 3 relationships in their lifetime. marriages, committed relationship, some of us are going to do it with the same person. It may be that your first marriage is over. For some reason, people like that one. Mm-hmm. It's calming. It's your first marriage, but maybe you can. Yes.
Gottman talks about that exact point. The way they frame it is relationship number one is over, and now we are now building relationship number two. Mm-hmm. Right. It's exactly how you frame that.
So I'm glad. He usually doesn't really agree with me, but or me with him. So that's good. So that's But the next part, after all the stuff, and I can give you the handout. It has it really broken down by the 3 phases of post-affair. Okay. So the whole first phase is really dealing with this immediate crisis aftermath. But then, phase, safety, container, calm. Define the affair as a dual crisis, as a dual person crisis. It's not the crisis of what one person did to the other. Both people experience loss of identity. Both people are anxious about the future. Both people, in that sense. So it's not only now. And it's very touchy because the minute you sometimes allude that there may have been a broader context, the people who are really wedded to the victim thing want to say, you blame me for this. Mm-hmm. It's like I didn't make this. Okay. But gradually you move into the phase of meaning and motivation. And the most important shift there at this point is helping people shift from being a detective to an investigative. The detective is, where were you? Where did you sleep? Did you fuck her here? Did you go to the hotel? Did you go to my room? Did you do this with him too? All of that. What's this bill? What's that bill? And it really doesn't give people any ounce of trust. It's not the way people... Actually, I think that really the complicated thing about trust is that it's our ability to live with that which we will never know. Mm-hmm. As long as you need to know, you don't trust. Mm-hmm. Trust is the ability to tolerate the unknown. So then but people do have questions and they do need to know. But what they need to know, to me, is of a different order, which is really the breakdown of love, which is, the need to be unique, indispensable, and irreplaceable to at least one person. That's what gets wiped off. And so then the question becomes, what happened to you there? Who were you there? Have I ever known this man or this woman? Did you think of me? Were you afraid to lose me? I can give you these questions. I have 100 of them written up. I'll just click it away and you're welcome to, I've written them down so that people understand. You want to provide the questions also. Sometimes people don't have them. What to ask that will help you understand. Because the moment you get into, I have a question to understand what you went through, you actually empower the person. You are away from the blame and you are away from the victim. And you actually give a person an entry. Help me understand you. We may still decide not to stay together. We may decide to stay together. And then we'll decide who we want to be as we stay together. But at least the investigative probes the meaning of the affair, not the sordid details of an affair. It's a very different story. And the revelation approach does not go for that. Because if you see the literature on affairs, it's always dyadic. Nobody talks about the lover. Right. It's an interesting thing. After all, there is no affair without at least a third. At least 1/3, but there is no mention of the third. And if they're mentioned, they're not mentioned as a person. I have done therapy with the lover and the partner. I haven't just done therapy. The couple isn't always the married couple or the committed couple. Which is the couple? I have seen various configurations of the couple.